Naomi never imagined the first thing to destroy her wasn't a tragedy, a stranger, or an accident, but a voice on the other side of her own bedroom door laughing about how her life meant nothing. After a 20-hour day and 4 back-to-back shifts, Naomi stood motionless in the hallway, her hand barely gripping the brass doorknob. It was nearly midnight, and her entire body throbbed, her feet numb inside her worn-out sneakers, her shoulders tight from bending over hospital computers, her stomach burning from nothing but a protein bar since dawn. She had made it home expecting the same routine: shower, something small to eat, 4 hours of sleep, and then do it all again. But instead of silence, she heard him. Derek's voice floated out from the bedroom, lively and carefree, a sound she hadn't heard directed at her in years. The phone was clearly on speaker. She could hear at least 2 other men laughing. Their amusement stabbed deeper than exhaustion ever did. "I'm telling you, man, I've got it made," Derek bragged loudly. Naomi froze. "But she works 4 damn jobs, bro," another voice said. "Hospital, call center, that restaurant, and the cleaning gig at night. You just chill?" "Pretty much," Derek replied without shame. She heard the clink of his expensive whiskey glass, the same one she stopped buying groceries to afford. "She thinks we're a team getting out of debt together. She thinks she's helping us rebuild." Laughter erupted. Another voice added, "That's cold." "Cold? No, that's smart. Why should I suffer when I've got my own personal workhorse? She barely sleeps enough to argue." Naomi's finger slipped from the doorknob. Her purse slid off her shoulder and hit the carpet with a soft thud. But the men inside didn't notice. They kept talking about money, about her. And then the part that shattered her. "What about that girl, Amber? You still seeing her?" "Oh, yeah," Derek answered, his tone brightening. "Naomi pays all the bills, so I've got spending money. Amber thinks I'm doing great. I take her out, buy her stuff. She's fun. Not exhausted and whining like Naomi." Whining. Personal workhorse. Smart. The words stacked on top of 3 years of sacrifice, crushing her until breathing felt impossible. She backed away from the door. Her legs felt like water. Her mind buzzed with disbelief so loud she couldn't even hear the hallway clock ticking. She had given up her life, her hobbies, her dreams, her body's health for the man laughing about using her. She stumbled into the kitchen, staring at the pile of dirty dishes he'd left, dishes she would have washed before collapsing into bed. Dishes she now realized symbolized the entire marriage. She worked, he consumed. And in that moment, something inside her cracked open. She didn't know exactly what she would do next, but she knew one thing with chilling certainty. Derek had just created a version of Naomi he would soon learn to fear. Naomi stood in the dim kitchen, her hands gripping the counter so tightly her knuckles whitened. The granite under her palms felt colder than usual, colder than the truth she had just overheard. She stared at the dishes, the crumbs, the empty takeout containers he never bothered to throw away. For years she had told herself she didn't mind cleaning up after him. She was tired, yes, but she was helping their future, their debt, their dreams. Except none of it had ever been theirs. Her throat tightened as she looked around the space she had once been proud of. She remembered the day she chose that charcoal gray countertop with its silver flecks. She had been so excited then, believing she and Derek were building a life together. In reality, she had been building a cage she didn't recognize because she was too exhausted to see it. 3 years. 3 years of nonstop work, no rest, no self-care. She had sacrificed everything. Her friendships, her hobbies, even her health. And Derek? Derek had been spending her money taking another woman to restaurants Naomi had never even driven past. The shock turned into something sharper. Clarity. A cold, steady clarity she had never felt before. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from the hospital. "Can you cover an extra shift tomorrow? We're critically short-staffed." She stared at the screen. Normally, she would say yes because of the bills, the house payment, the debt Derek claimed they shared. But now she saw the truth clearly. She was the only one working to keep them afloat. Derek wasn't drowning with her. He was standing on her shoulders. "No," Naomi whispered, not into the phone, but to herself. A single word, quiet yet powerful, echoing through her chest. She didn't answer the hospital. Instead, she picked up her fallen purse, inhaled shakily, and walked away from the kitchen. Every step down the hallway felt heavier and brighter at the same time, like her body was exhausted, but her spirit was waking up. She reached the door of the guest room, the office Derek claimed he needed for business, despite never bringing home a single paycheck. The room she was told not to enter, the room she avoided because she thought respecting his space was what a supportive wife did. But she wasn't his supporter anymore. Naomi flipped on the light. The room was chaos, crumpled clothes, empty bottles, scattered mail, not the workspace of a man building a business, but of someone hiding the mess he created. She walked to the desk and pulled open the drawers one by one. She didn't know what she was searching for, but she knew she would find it. And when she did, her entire world snapped into sharper focus. Beneath the stack of old magazines, Naomi uncovered the first piece of proof that would ignite everything, and it was far worse than she imagined. Naomi slowly lifted the stack of magazines, her fingers trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything she was beginning to understand. Beneath them lay a thick envelope stuffed with credit card statements, dozens of them. She pulled out the first one, and the numbers nearly made her drop it. $15,000. The next one, $20,000. Another, $8,000. Every page burned her palms like fire as she skimmed through the charges. Jewelry stores she had never stepped into, hotels she had never slept in, restaurants she only drove past on her way to a shift. And the dates, every charge was recent, very recent. Derek wasn't just drowning in debt, he was actively digging deeper. While she worked 4 jobs, he was spending faster than she could earn, on amber, on whiskey, on whatever fantasy life he pretended to have. Her shock dissolved, replaced with something steel-like. She brought out her phone and took photos of every single page, every statement, every receipt, every damning detail. Her hands didn't shake this time. She felt disturbingly calm, colder, focused, like she had finally stepped outside the fog he had kept her in. She gathered everything into a neat pile and placed it back exactly as she found it. This wasn't the moment to confront him. Not yet. Not with him laughing with his friends in the other room, celebrating the life she built and he abused. She needed a plan. Naomi walked quietly out of the office and into the guest bathroom, locking the door behind her. She sat on the edge of the tub, pulled out her phone again, and opened her banking app. Her paycheck from yesterday had deposited. The joint account showed $800, but her stomach twisted when she saw the withdrawals. He had already taken $600, transferred straight into his personal account, the one she never had access to, the one he insisted was for business expenses. She scrolled through the history, transfer after transfer, her money going in, his money going out. Thousands, tens of thousands over the years. Years of her life stolen in increments. Naomi tapped into her email and stared at the draft she had written at 2 a.m. and deleted twice. The email to a divorce lawyer, a name Brenda had whispered to her months ago during a rare lunch break. Her thumb hovered over the send button. This time, She didn't hesitate. She pressed send. The email flew into the digital void, but Naomi could feel the shift immediately, as if the house itself exhaled around her, like the walls finally knew she had awakened. She stood, rinsed her face in cold water, and looked at her reflection. Her eyes were bloodshot, her hair a mess, but for the first time in years, she saw strength. She had taken the first step, but she had no idea the next step would expose a betrayal even deeper than the one she had already uncovered. The morning came too quickly. Naomi hadn't slept. Her mind was too full, her body too wired. Every time she closed her eyes, Derek's words replayed, personal slave. That phrase carved itself into her consciousness, not as an insult, but as a wake-up call she could no longer ignore. At 4 a.m., her alarm buzzed, the same alarm she had relied on for years. Usually, she would drag herself out of bed, throw on scrubs, and begin another day of sprinting through exhaustion. But today was different. Today, she wasn't going to the hospital. For the first time in 18 months, she called in sick. Her voice cracked slightly when she left the message, not from sorrow, but from a strange mix of guilt and liberation. She didn't owe them an explanation, not today. Today belonged to her. She showered quickly, dressed in the only professional outfit still surviving in her closet, a black blazer and slacks she had bought years ago for a job interview that never led anywhere because Derek needed her support at home. She did her hair as best she could, dabbed concealer under her eyes, and stared at herself in the mirror. She looked tired, but she also looked determined. Derek was snoring loudly when she slipped out of the house. The sound used to annoy her. Now it felt symbolic. He had slept comfortably through years of her labor and sacrifice. He would keep sleeping through this moment, too, unaware that the world he depended on was already collapsing. The drive to the law office felt surreal. Traffic lights blinked red and green across her windshield, casting eerie reflections on her face. She kept rehearsing what she would say, but when she arrived and saw the polished glass building, her mind emptied. She inhaled deeply and walked inside. Patricia, the lawyer Brenda had recommended, greeted her with calm confidence. A woman in her 40s with steel gray hair and an expression that radiated authority, not anger, not pity, but certainty. "Tell me everything," Patricia said simply. Naomi did. Slowly at first, then faster, the truth spilling out in pieces. 4 jobs, mounting debt, the overheard phone call, the secret spending, the mistress, the financial manipulation. She waited for Patricia to judge her, but Patricia didn't. Instead, she leaned forward and said, "Naomi, what you've experienced is financial abuse, and you are not responsible for the debts he created without your consent." The words struck Naomi like warm sunlight after years in a dark room. Patricia explained the steps. Separate finances, collect evidence, document everything, and stay safe. She handed Naomi a checklist and her personal number. For the first time in years, Naomi felt guided instead of drained. As she walked back to her car, a tiny spark flickered inside her. Hope. But hope would soon be overshadowed because Naomi was about to uncover a secret Derek had worked very hard to keep hidden. Naomi sat in her car outside Patricia's office, the checklist resting on her lap like a roadmap out of a nightmare. Every item felt heavy. Open a private bank account, save money secretly, gather proof, plan an exit, monitor safety, but none of it felt impossible anymore. For the first time in 3 years, she wasn't just surviving the day, She was preparing for a future. She drove straight to the nearest bank branch and opened a checking and savings account solely in her name. No joint signatures, no shared access, no Derek. When she slid the transfer slip across the desk, moving the remaining $800 from the joint account, she expected fear. Instead, she felt relief. It wasn't much money, but it was finally hers. She spent the rest of the day at her second job, the call center. The phones rang endlessly, angry customers ranted, screens flashed with error codes. Normally, the stress crushed her, but today she handled each call almost mechanically because her mind was elsewhere, building a plan with the clarity of someone who had finally stepped out of a fog. By 7 p.m., she was heading to her evening shift at the restaurant. But halfway there, her body gave up. Her hands felt numb on the steering wheel, her vision blurry from sheer exhaustion. Instead of pushing through like always, she did something unheard of. She allowed herself to stop. She texted the restaurant manager that she had a family emergency and couldn't come in. She expected guilt. Instead, she felt her shoulders loosen. When she finally arrived home, Derek's car was in the driveway. Lights glowed from inside the house. She paused at the door, remembering Patricia's warning, don't tip him off, act normal, keep gathering evidence. So she put on a calm mask and stepped inside. Derek was in the kitchen making himself a sandwich like he hadn't spent the previous night bragging about using her. When he saw her, he smiled. A smile she recognized now as manipulation dressed as affection. "You're home early," he said, like he deserved an explanation. "Slow night at work," she lied smoothly. "They didn't need me." He nodded and offered her a sandwich. It would have been kind once. Now it felt insulting. He was offering her food, but with her paycheck, pretending he was generous. She excused herself to the guest room, closed the door, and sat on the bed. Her heart thudded in her chest as she pulled out her phone and began writing emails to her mother, to Brenda, to HR about reducing hours. She didn't send them yet, but each draft was a stepping stone. At midnight, Derek knocked on the door asking why she wasn't sleeping in their bed. She fed him another lie, back pain, long hours, nothing serious. He accepted it, for now. As he walked away, Naomi stared at the ceiling, her pulse steady. She was getting stronger. He was getting suspicious. But neither of them knew the truth. Naomi was only days away from discovering a secret Derek never expected her to find.
3 days later, Derek casually mentioned that his car was a mess and that Naomi should clean it because she was better at that kind of thing. His tone was the same one he used when asking her to handle his laundry, his paperwork, his life, expecting obedience wrapped as helpfulness. Ordinarily, Naomi would have said yes automatically. Today, she said yes with purpose. She needed more evidence. She needed something concrete, something that tied every lie together. And if Derek had been sloppy in the house, she suspected the car might be worse. He left for the gym, staying gone for his usual 3 hours of self-care, while Naomi stepped into the driveway with gloves and trash bags. She opened the car door and the smell of old fast food hit her immediately. The back seat was a graveyard of wrappers, water bottles, and gym clothes stiff with sweat. She started in the trunk, mostly garbage. Then the back seat, more clutter, a tossed receipt from a jewelry store. She unfolded it carefully. A bracelet, $450, purchased 2 weeks ago. Not for her. She photographed it and slid it back exactly where she found it. The front passenger seat was worse. Crumbs, parking stubs, the lingering scent of cologne she had never smelled on Derek at home. She popped open the glove compartment expecting insurance papers and napkins. She did not expect a second phone. It was old, scuffed, and tucked beneath a folder of expired registrations. Her heartbeat quickened. She pressed the power button. The screen lit up immediately, no passcode, like he never imagined she'd find it. Inside, messages greeted her. The first chat thread was labeled simply A. Her stomach turned. Naomi clicked it open. "Miss you already, babe. Can't wait until Friday. What time can you sneak away?" "Noon. I'll tell her I have a job interview." Naomi's lips parted as she read the next line. She believes anything I say. She's so exhausted she doesn't question it. She scrolled faster. Photos. Dozens. Derek with Amber at bars, beaches, hotel beds. Amber wearing expensive jewelry Naomi unknowingly purchased. Amber smiling like she lived in a dream that Naomi's labor had paid for. Then came the worst message. She works herself into the ground. It keeps her too busy to notice anything. Works out perfectly for us. Us. Naomi took screenshots of everything, every message, every photo, every timestamp. She saved them to an encrypted folder Patricia had instructed her to create. Her hands weren't trembling from shock anymore. The trembling came from something sharper, colder. Resolve. She placed the phone back precisely where she found it, finished cleaning the car, and went inside pretending nothing had changed. Derek came home an hour later, praising how spotless the car looked. Naomi smiled back calmly. He had no idea his life was already beginning to collapse. But the fallout would arrive sooner than she expected, because that night, Naomi received a message from the one person she never imagined would reach out.
That night, after Derek had devoured nearly an entire pizza and fallen asleep on the couch, his usual throne, Naomi retreated to the guest room. She sat on the bed in silence, staring at the ceiling. Her mind wasn't racing, it was calculating. She felt strangely calm, like every lie she discovered sealed another crack in the old version of herself. As she prepared to plug in her phone, it buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. One short message. "Hi, is this Naomi? It's Amber. We need to talk." Naomi's stomach tightened. For a moment, she thought she was hallucinating from exhaustion. Then, another message. "Derek gave me your number a long time ago in case something happened. I just found out he's still married. Are you two actually separated?" Naomi stared at the screen. Of all the people she expected to hear from, Amber was last on the list. Anger, curiosity, and a bitter sense of irony twisted together in her chest. She wanted to ignore her, but she also wanted Amber to understand exactly what she'd helped Derek do. Naomi typed slowly. "No, we're not separated. We are very much still married." The 3 dots appeared instantly. "I had no idea. He said you were filing for divorce, that it was almost done." Naomi exhaled sharply. She remembered the messages between them, the ones where Amber giggled about Naomi working herself to death, calling her the tired wife. She typed again. "He lied to both of us, but you should know. He has no money, no job, and nearly $100,000 in debt. Everything he spent on you was paid with my income." There was a long pause before Amber responded. "I didn't know. I swear I didn't. I thought he had a real business. I thought he was successful." Naomi's jaw clenched. "Believe what you want, but he used me and he used you. That's the truth." This time, Amber didn't argue. She sent one last message. "I'm done with him. Just be careful. He's going to freak out when he realizes he can't control you anymore." Naomi locked her phone and put it away, her breathing shallow. She didn't need Amber's warnings. She already knew Derek was capable of manipulation. But now, someone else knew the truth too, and that meant Derek's world was already cracking. Over the next few days, Naomi noticed small changes. Derek was more attentive, more watchful. He kept checking his phone like he was waiting for someone to respond or someone to return. Amber wasn't answering, and Derek was starting to panic. Meanwhile, Naomi kept saving. She kept gathering evidence. She kept pretending. 4 weeks into her plan, she had nearly everything she needed to leave. But Derek sensed something was wrong, and eventually he confronted her because one afternoon, Naomi walked through the front door and found Derek sitting at the kitchen table, pale, shaking, and holding something she never expected him to see.
Naomi froze in the doorway. Derek sat at the kitchen table, elbows on his knees, his hands gripping a stack of papers so tightly the edges curled. His face was drained of color, his eyes wide and glassy. He looked like someone who had seen a ghost. Except the ghost with the truth he was never supposed to find. "Naomi," he said quietly, too quietly. "What is this?" She closed the door behind her, setting her keys down with steady hands. Inside, her pulse hammered. Outside, she stayed calm. "What are you talking about?" she asked, walking forward slowly. He lifted one of the papers with shaking fingers. Even from where she stood, she recognized it. Her checklist. Patricia's checklist. The one she'd kept hidden in the bottom drawer of the guest room desk. Except the drawer had been slightly cracked earlier that morning. She hadn't thought much of it. Now she understood. "You're planning something," Derek said, voice trembling between anger and fear. "You're trying to leave me." Naomi swallowed. "Why were you going through my things?" "Don't turn this on me," Derek snapped, slamming the papers on the table. "You think I'm stupid? You've been acting different for weeks, hiding your phone, lying about work, using the guest room. Don't pretend nothing is happening." He stood abruptly, the chair scraping loudly against the tile. "What is this?" he demanded again. "A lawyer? Bank accounts? Divorce?" His panic filled the kitchen like a storm cloud. Naomi stepped back, not because she feared him physically, but because she saw something terrifying in his expression. Desperation. A man losing control. A man who needed her to stay weak. Naomi straightened her shoulders. "Yes," she said simply. "I contacted a lawyer, I opened my own account, and I'm leaving." Derek blinked, stunned. That wasn't the reaction he expected. He'd probably prepared for tears or denial, maybe even guilt. But Naomi wasn't collapsing this time. "You can't do that to me," he said, voice cracking. "I've invested years into this marriage." Invested. The word made her stomach twist. "You haven't invested. You have drained. And I'm done." He took a step toward her. "Naomi, you don't understand. Things are complicated right now." "Oh, I understand perfectly. I've seen your second phone." The blood drained from Derek's face completely. She had struck the nerve. "You don't know what you saw," he tried, voice quivering. Naomi tilted her head. "I saw enough." His breath hitched. "Naomi, you can't leave. I need you." She stared at him, realizing something chilling. This wasn't love. This was dependence, a parasite afraid of losing its host. But before Naomi could respond, Derek blurted out a confession, one that exposed a secret far darker than the affair and far more dangerous than she ever imagined.
Derek's chest heaved as he ran a hand through his hair, pacing in a tight circle like a trapped animal. Naomi stood still, watching him, waiting. She didn't have to push him. His fear was doing all the work. Finally, he stopped and looked at her with eyes swollen with panic. "Naomi, I'm in trouble." She kept her face blank. "I already know." "No," he said sharply, shaking his head. "Not the cheating, not Amber, something else." Naomi's stomach tightened. "What did you do, Derek?" He sank into the chair, burying his face in his hands. His shoulders trembled. I borrowed money," he whispered. She didn't react. "You've borrowed money before." He shook his head again, violently this time. "Not like this, not from a bank, not from credit cards." He lifted his gaze to hers, and for the first time since she'd met him, she saw raw, unfiltered terror in his eyes. "I borrowed from people who expect repayment, fast repayment, and I'm overdue." A chill crawled up Naomi's spine. "What kind of people?" Derek swallowed so hard it was audible. "People you don't say no to." She exhaled slowly. "How much do you owe them?" He hesitated. "How much?" He looked down at the table. 25,000. Naomi felt the air leave her lungs. Not because of the number, she'd seen worse in the credit card statements, but because of the kind of debt Derek was describing. Dangerous money. Money that came with threats, not interest rates. He leaned forward desperately. "They said they'd give me a week, just 1 week. I thought maybe I could figure something out. But Amber blocked me, and you've been distant." "Because you've been using me," Naomi cut in coldly. Derek slammed his fist on the table. "I didn't have a choice." "Yes," she said calmly, "you did. And you chose wrong." He stood again, frantic. "Naomi, please, I need help. You always fix things. You're good at fixing things." The words were meant to flatter her. Instead, they ignited a fire in her chest. "I'm not fixing this," she said quietly. Derek blinked. "What? You have to. They'll come after me." Naomi's voice was steady. "Then maybe you should have thought about that before you spent my paychecks on hotels and jewelry." He stepped closer, lowering his voice until it turned into a desperate whisper. "Naomi, they know where we live." That made her heart stop. "We?" she repeated. "No, you. They're after you, not me." But fear crept under her skin despite her words. If these people showed up at the house, she would be in danger too. Derek reached for her arm. "Naomi, please, don't leave. If you walk away, they'll come for me, and they won't care who gets caught in the middle." She pulled her arm back sharply. "I'm not saving you," she said. "You don't understand. You're already involved." And when Derek revealed exactly how he had dragged Naomi into his secret debt, her blood ran cold, because it meant she wasn't just trying to escape a marriage anymore. She was running out of time.
Naomi stood frozen, every muscle in her body tightening. "What do you mean I'm already involved?" Derek backed up a step, like he expected her to explode. I had to give them something that proved I would pay. Collateral." Her pulse pounded in her ears. "What did you give them, Derek?" He rubbed his face, refusing to meet her eyes. "Your information." Naomi's stomach dropped. "What information?" He finally looked at her, and the guilt in his expression made her skin crawl. "Your driver's license, your social security number, our address, your workplace." Naomi felt the world tilt. She grabbed the counter to steady herself. "You gave strangers my identity, my documents, without my consent?" Her voice was low, dangerous. He nodded helplessly. "They needed proof I wasn't running. They needed to know someone dependable was tied to me." Someone dependable.
someone who always worked, someone who always paid. Her. He had offered her as collateral. Naomi's voice trembled, not with fear, but with a rage so sharp it felt icy. You put me in danger, Derek. He threw up his hands. I didn't think they'd ever need to contact you. I thought I'd win some bets, flip some money, get ahead. Bets? Naomi's eyes widened in disbelief. You gambled the money? He flinched. I was trying to double it. I thought I could fix everything before you found out. She stared at him like he was a stranger. You didn't just betray me. You endangered me. You endangered us both. Derek stepped closer, lowering his voice. Naomi, please, if you walk out now, they'll think I disappeared. They'll come here. They'll look for me. They'll go through you to get to me. She backed away. And whose fault is that? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was hanging in the air like smoke. Naomi's mind raced. Patricia had told her to be careful, to expect manipulation. But this wasn't manipulation anymore. This was a threat, one Derek had created by being reckless, selfish, and desperate. And now she had to navigate a divorce, financial abuse, an affair, and dangerous strangers who had her personal information. Her breath came faster. She needed to act quickly. She needed protection. She needed distance. I'm leaving, she said quietly. Tonight. Derek's face twisted with panic. No, you can't. You can't leave me now. I'm not leaving you. I'm leaving the danger you dragged into our lives. He shook his head violently. If you go, everything falls apart. For me, for you, for both of us. Naomi stared at him, realization dawning. No, Derek, she said slowly. Everything is already falling apart because of you. But before Naomi could walk out the door, a sharp knock echoed through the house, one that made Derek go pale and sent ice shooting through her veins.
The knock was not polite. It was heavy, intentional, a sound that cut straight through the walls and into Naomi's spine. Derek's face drained of every remaining trace of color. He stepped backward until his back hit the table, gripping the edge like he might collapse. They're early, he whispered. Naomi's pulse thrashed in her throat. Who is that? He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Another knock, harder this time, shook the door. The kind of knock that demanded obedience. Derek grabbed her arm. Go to the guest room. Don't say anything. Don't come out unless I tell you. She yanked her arm away. I'm not hiding. Yes, you are, he hissed. You have to. No, she said, her voice steadying. You made this mess. You answer the door. The knocking stopped. Silence spread across the house like a shadow. Naomi stepped toward the hallway, but Derek blocked her path. Naomi, please, he whispered. Just do what I say for once. Her jaw tightened. That's all I've ever done. Another loud thud on the door made them both flinch. Naomi's heart thundered. Derek's eyes darted frantically around the room, searching for any escape that didn't exist. Finally, with shaking hands, Derek forced himself to the front door. Naomi stayed several feet behind, watching his shoulders tense as he turned the knob. He opened the door only a crack, but a boot shoved it wide, slamming it into the wall. Naomi gasped as two men stepped inside, broad, stone-faced, dressed in dark clothing. They didn't look like debt collectors. They looked like enforcers. The taller man spoke first, his voice calm and cold. Evening, Derek. Derek attempted a shaky smile. Hey, I was just about to call you guys. No, you weren't. The second man's gaze snapped toward Naomi. Who's she? Derek blocked their line of sight like shielding her might undo anything. My wife. She's not involved.
The taller man raised an eyebrow. That's interesting, because her name is on all the forms you gave us. Naomi felt her blood freeze. He stepped toward her, pulling a folded sheet from his pocket. Naomi Riley, age 34, works at the hospital and 2 other jobs. Good income, reliable, very responsible. His voice dripped with meaning. Naomi forced her breathing to steady. She didn't move, didn't cower. Instead, she met his eyes with a calmness she didn't feel. That information was used without my permission. I have nothing to do with Derek's debt. The man smirked. That's not how this works. Derek stepped between them. Please, please don't drag her into this. The taller man ignored him. You owe $25,000. We gave you an extension already. Now we want payment. Derek's voice broke. I just need a little more time. No, the man said simply. You're out of time. Naomi's stomach twisted. She could feel it, tension like a storm ready to break. And then the taller man turned to Naomi and told her exactly what they expected her to do next.
The taller man turned fully toward Naomi, his expression unreadable. Derek looked like he might faint, but Naomi stood straighter, even as her heartbeat thrashed wildly beneath her ribs. Since Derek can't pay, the man said calmly, we expect you to cover his debt. Naomi felt the room tilt. She shook her head once. Absolutely not. The second man crossed his arms. You have income, multiple jobs. You can pay it off. Naomi held her ground. I'm not responsible for money he stole and gambled away. The taller man gave a slow, cold smile. Maybe not legally, but practically, you live here. He's your husband. His problems are your problems. No, Naomi said firmly, not anymore. Something shifted in the man's eyes, not anger, but interest, like she had just become more trouble than he expected. Derek lunged forward. Please, just don't threaten her. I'll figure something out, I promise. No promises, the man cut in. We don't deal in promises. We deal in actions. He stepped closer to Naomi, lowering his voice. You can make this simple. You start paying, we stay away. Derek stays breathing. Derek collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Naomi could feel his panic radiating across the room like heat. For years, she had been under the weight of his irresponsibility, cleaning up his messes, carrying his burden. Not anymore. She lifted her chin. I'm not paying you a cent. The room went still. The second man narrowed his eyes. You're making this harder than it needs to be. No, Naomi said, voice steady as stone. Derek made it hard. Derek borrowed the money. Derek gave my information. Derek lied. Derek gambled. Derek hid everything. Her eyes didn't waver. Her voice didn't shake. This ends with him, not me. The taller man considered her for a long moment, then exhaled through his nose in annoyance. He turned to Derek. You have 72 hours. 3 days. Pay half, or we come back. And next time, we don't knock. They walked out as suddenly as they'd entered. The door slammed behind them, leaving a thick, heavy silence in their place. Derek collapsed to the floor, sobbing. Naomi, please, you have to help me. I'm dead without you. Naomi looked at him, not with pity, not with anger, but with the clarity of someone who had finally stepped into her own life. You already killed what we had. Now you get to face the consequences alone. She walked past him, grabbed her purse, her documents, her phone, and headed for the door. "Where are you going?" he choked out. "To save myself," she answered. Derek reached out weakly. "Naomi, please." She paused only once, just long enough to say the words she should have spoken years ago. "I'm done being your shield." And then she stepped outside, closing the door on the life that had nearly destroyed her. Naomi didn't know what her future looked like yet, but one thing was certain. She was finally free, and she would never let anyone use her name, her work, or her heart as collateral.